The short story series. Written by Thomas Fincham.
Goodwill. Scene 1. Gunfire. Everywhere. A long road divided the two bitter enemies. The captain hated the enemy. He could see their helmets bop up and down behind the makeshift barricades. He aimed and fired at the bopping helmets. He missed. They were too far away. The bullets zinged back and forth. This had been going on for almost an hour now. The captain heard a noise. He listened closely. It sounded like a child's cry. Shielding himself, he went to the other side of the barricades. In the middle of the border there was a car with its side on fire. There was always something burning on the border. Always. The captain could recall how peaceful it used to be. Both countries enjoying trade and goodwill, but now the tensions had escalated. There was still some trade, but only occasionally. An hour earlier, a truck filled with rice was being transported to his country, but when the peace talks ended, the enemy destroyed the truck. He looked carefully. A young girl was hiding behind the car. The car must have been there when the enemy blew up the truck. The girl was huddled and crying. God, no, thought the captain. Why didn't he see her earlier? He put his hand up but his men did not stop firing. He yelled. The firing stopped. Without thinking he set his rifle down and got up, in full view of the enemy. What are you doing, Captain? He heard one of the soldiers say. The captain waved his hands in the air, letting the enemy know he was unarmed. He knew they had their best shooters aimed at him. Scene 2. On the other side, the sergeant had had his men stop firing when he saw the crazy soldier expose himself. What the hell was he doing? Was he testing the sergeant's courage? The sergeant would shoot him between the eyes if it came down to it. But he waited. The crazy soldier vaulted the barricade on his side of the border. The sergeant nodded to his sharpshooters. They were ready, when signaled. The crazy soldier walked toward them. His steps were slow and calculated. He stopped in the middle of the road and turned right. He pointed. Now the sergeant was curious. The crazy soldier knelt down beside a car and appeared to be speaking to something. Scene 3. The captain was now on his knees. He was encouraging the girl to come to him. But she looked even more terrified. He gently asked the girl again in his language. She tightly clutched her body. The captain was now confused. Why wasn't she coming to him? Then it hit him. She belonged to the other side. The captain hated the other side, ever since they brutally killed his brother. But this was a child. He couldn't leave her in the middle of no man's land. The captain spoke to her, in her language. He hated speaking the enemy's language, but he had no choice. The girl relaxed, slightly. Scene 4. The sergeant saw the crazy soldier extend his hand. The sharpshooters were ready, their fingers twitching at the trigger. He put up his hand, a silent signal, wait. Not yet. The sergeant was a patient man. The crazy soldier was saying something. Suddenly a child appeared from behind the burning truck. The sergeant's mouth dropped. So did his soldiers. The girl walked toward the crazy soldier, who embraced her, and then, holding hands, they began walking towards the sergeant's squad. It was the most beautiful image. An unarmed soldier escorting a young girl across the border they called death. It looked as if time had stopped and the two were walking in slow motion. Scene 5. The captain held her young hand and walked. She reminded him of his daughter. The girl told him her name. It was a beautiful name. Her uncle was driving her across the border when the truck struck her car. The captain knew her uncle was dead. A price paid for hate. He let go of her hand and watched her run. An enemy soldier swooped her into the barricades. The captain's heart began to beat faster. He was at the mercy of the enemy. But his eyes caught sight of a man. The man was standing upright. He was of high distinction, the captain could tell. Their eyes met. The man's eyes revealed no hatred or ill will, only confusion. The man nodded, and the captain nodded in return. Then he turned and began walking back. Scene 6. The sergeant saw the crazy soldier walk into the distance. For a brief second, He wondered why he was here. Why were they fighting? What could they gain? Once the crazy soldier was out of harm's way, the sergeant made a hand signal, and his men began firing again.
Please subscribe to the channel, and never miss a new audiobook.